Urban legends are my bread and butter. I love urban legends. There's something so spooky about a story that's been told through the generations, no one really knowing if it's true or not. But what happens if some of them do end up being true? Today, lady and man, I have compiled some of the most terrifying, blood-curdling urban legends that ended up being true. For this video, I'm going to go in the order of least spooky to most spooky. So if you have a strong stomach and aren't afraid of a little scariness, stick around until the end. If you're a wimp, don't even bother subscribing. We don't allow wimps. The first urban legend takes place in Canada. In the early 90s, a story circulated through Toronto of a lawyer who worked on the top floor of a high-rise building. During some of his consultations, the lawyer would apparently like to demonstrate the strength of the windows in his office. And the way he'd do this is by running straight into them, because most normal people would do that. Until one day, according to the urban legend, the window broke and the lawyer fell to his death. This story was actually true. The mistake was made by a man named Gary Hoy, a senior partner in an area law firm with an office on the 24th floor. On July 9th, 1993, Hoy made his signature tackle against the glass to impress some visiting law students. But the funny thing is, the window didn't actually break. However, the entire pane of glass came straight out of the frame, causing Gary to plummet to his death. I'm not really sure why this one became an urban legend. It's not a very difficult story to believe. I guess there's just not that much happening in Canada. Our next story takes place down in southern US. In 2003, stories began to circulate around Louisiana of a so-called serial snuggler. Though no one could really confirm these to be true, people would share stories of a man breaking into women's houses just to watch them sleep, or fold their clothes, or even cook himself a meal in their kitchen. And once he was done, he would just leave. At the time, there was no suspect or no real evidence to prove that it was actually real. It turns out it was. And the man actually turned himself in after breaking into more than 12 women's houses. The snuggler helped himself to food such as beer and pizza, and even made himself nachos in one of the girls' apartments, and in one instance even folded a woman's clothes and crawled into her bed to rub her stomach while she slept. The judge noted that former LSU student lived a commendable life before starting his crime spree, and sentenced him to a 12-year suspended sentence, 5 years probation, 200 hours of community service, and regular drug testing. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe so I can keep making videos. I don't want to get a 9-to-5 job. Our next urban legend starts to delve into the more spooky, supernatural kind of themes, and it actually inspired a scene in a very famous horror movie. The 1992 movie Candyman introduced audience members to a scene that's almost become cliche. A villain bursts through the bathroom mirror to attack an unsuspecting victim. The story was known to many for a long time as an urban legend, but no one really knew the true story behind it. What many people don't realize is that this scene was actually based on a terrifying true event. Our story follows a lady named Ruthie Mae McCoy, a woman who'd spent a large portion of her life completely terrified over nothing. She was an extremely paranoid lady. People who knew her claimed that she was the kind of lady that would talk to herself and scream at strangers on the street. In 1987, at age 53, Ruthie called 911 from her Chicago housing project, saying frantically that men were coming through her bathroom wall. But Ruth, being the paranoid person that she was, could have potentially been hallucinating the entire event. The dispatcher wasn't 100% certain about what Ruthie was trying to report. He ended up assigning a car to answer a disturbance between neighbors. However, the dispatcher didn't report the call as a break-in attempt, which may explain why police didn't arrive on time. Eventually, another 911 call came in concerning Ruthie's apartment. This one was from a woman who claimed that she was walking through the hallway and heard gunshots coming from Ruthie's apartment. At 9:04, another neighbor called, also reporting the gunshots. So 2 more police cars headed to the scene. 4 officers finally arrived at the building. They pounded on the door, announced their presence, and waited for Ruthie to respond, but they didn't get an answer back. The officers contacted the project office, but the janitor said that he had no key for Ruthie's apartment, and so the police left the building without checking on Ruthie. The following evening, the police got another call from a concerned neighbour. So the police showed up again, did the routine knocking on Ruthie's door, got no response, and left the scene again. So the next day, at about 1 p.m, a project official arrived at Ruthie's apartment with a carpenter who drilled a hole through Ruthie's lock. They found her in the bathroom, lying on her side in a pool of blood, a hand over her chest, one shoe on and one shoe off. Ruthie had been shot 4 times. The attackers, who have still not been found to this day, broke in through the medicine cabinet in her bathroom, thus spawning the infamous scene from 1992's Candyman. Our next story takes us over to Pennsylvania. In the early to mid 1900s in western Pennsylvania, many urban legends were spoken through townfolk, but one of them always stood out: the story of the Green Man. The story was told of a faceless man lurking the roads at night. Marie Werner, who grew up in Elizabeth Township, stated, "The legend goes that he roams that hollow late at night and chases the parkers and the loafers," says Werner, who admits to having gone there a few times. "I never saw him," she adds, though many friends claimed to. The story of the Green Man is actually completely true, but it's not as scary as you may think. The real Green Man was this man, Raymond Robinson, a man who had been badly disfigured during his childhood. Raymond Robinson's disfiguration came when he was 8 years old, when he was injured by an electrical line as he climbed a pole and reached for a bird's nest on the Morado Bridge. The bridge carried a trolley and had electrical lines up to 22,000 volts, which were actually responsible for the death of another boy a year earlier. Robinson survived, defying doctors' expectations, but he was severely disfigured. He lost his eyes, nose, and right arm. Apparently, Raymond was actually a pretty chill dude. He'd offer people photos in exchange for cigarettes, and the only reason that he walked the streets at night is because he didn't want to scare people by walking through the day. And most people that stopped for photos were actually really kind to him. However, there were people that weren't so nice. Apparently, Raymond was struck by vehicles on multiple occasions during his night walks. Despite this, Raymond lived a long and happy life with his family members, hand-making belts and wallets to sell, and passed away at the age of 74. Raymond's photo remains infamous to this day, but once you learn the backstory, it sort of stops being scary. Raymond seemed like a genuinely good person. Our next story, though, is the complete opposite of a good person. This story takes place in Fairfax County, Virginia, but actually ended up spreading to Washington, D.C. and Maryland areas. People would tell stories of a man dressed in a bunny costume that would attack people with a hatchet. Most of these stories come from Colchester Overpass, a bridge in Clifton, Virginia, which is now commonly known as the Bunny Man Bridge. The Bunny Man was commonly told to be a convict named Douglas J. Griffin, who escaped to a railroad overpass while being transported to a new facility by bus. The story proceeds to chronicle a series of grisly and almost supernatural murders. The story of the Bunny Man is actually true, with over 54 reports of people having encounters with an aggressive man dressed in a bunny suit. The first report was in 1970 by US Air Force cadet Robert Bennett and his fiancée. Around midnight, while returning from a football game, they reportedly parked their car in a field. As they sat in the front seat with their motor running, they noticed something moving outside their rear window. Moments later, the front passenger window was smashed, and there was a figure standing next to the broken window. Bennett quickly turned the car around and drove off while the man screamed after them, "You're on private property and I have your tag number." As they drove down the road, the couple discovered a hatchet on the car floor. Robert Bennett claimed that the man was wearing a costume with long rabbit-like ears coming from his head. However, his wife denies these claims. While the Bunny Man technically existed, there were never any murders actually linked to him. In fact, no one ever knew who he actually was, as he was never arrested or charged for any crimes. He was just another urban legend that got more and more graphic as the years went on. We're going to move out of the US for this next urban legend, and we're going to make our way to Switzerland. Beginning in 2003 in the Swiss town of Morges, stories began to circulate of a tall humanoid creature lurking through the woods. The figure was roughly 2 meters tall and would apparently wear a boiler suit, a cloak, and a gas mask. Many theories and urban legends began to spread around the town. Some theorized that it was the ghost of a soldier, while others claimed that it was a cryptid or an alien, but the most popular theory was that he was a hermit that would cover up due to deformities. The figure was labelled Le Loyon, and it remained a fairly small urban legend, mostly contained to malls until 2013. But in 2013, a man hiking with his family actually witnessed Lei Loyan. The hiker states, "I approached, about 10 meters away. He had a military pilgrim, boots, and an army gas mask, an old model. He saw me, then turned his back on me and went away quietly." The hiker managed to get a photo, and to this day, it remains the only photo of Lei Loyan. The photo went viral in Switzerland and popularized the figure's presence. It got so popular that Lei Loyan was soon labeled as the Swiss Loch Ness Monster. The last reported sighting of Lei Loyan was in November 2013, when a woman reported that she saw Lei Loyan picking flowers. Another article was posted about Lei Loyan, and shortly after, his infamous clothes and gas mask were found near a tree with a note. The note said, "The risk of a hunt for the beast has become too big." Lei Loyan has since vanished. To this day, no one knows who or what Lei Loyan is, and no one knows where it went. The sighting of Lei Loyan has proven its existence, but has only brought more mystery to the story. Our final story is proven to be real, but it still remains unexplained. A real story of genuine mystery and paranormal activity. The story starts on August 15th, 1918 in Japan. And before I start, I apologize if I mispronounce any of the words. I am not Japanese, I have not studied Japanese, I unfortunately do not know how to pronounce Japanese words. 17-year-old Eikichi Suzuki was touring for a maritime exhibition and discovered a doll in the window of a shop. The doll instantly drew his eyes. Suzuki didn't think twice and walked in and instantly purchased it for his baby sister, Okiku. The doll was roughly 40 centimeters tall and dressed in a traditional kimono. Its hair was black and cut to shoulder length in a traditional Okappa hairstyle. Suzuki went back home and gave the doll to his sister. It didn't take long for the doll to become Okiku's favorite toy, and more importantly, her best friend. Okiku played every day with the doll, took it everywhere, and treated the figurine like a younger sister. She would feed it and sleep with it. She decided to call the doll Okiku, named after herself. A year later, tragedy struck. In 1919, Okiku died due to the yellow fever. The family wanted to bury the doll along with Okiku. However, the doll was never laid. The doll, Okiku, was instead placed in the family's altar, a common practice in certain Japanese households to commemorate the dead. The small shrine celebrated their daughter and marked her passing into the afterlife. One day, the family started to notice that the traditional shoulder-length hair with clean ends had now become a mangled mess with split ends reaching down past the doll's waist. It was scruffy, odd colours, and felt different. Chilling events intensified and grew into full-blown acts of spiritual infestation. Lights flickering on and off, bangings in the house, noises, and strange voices. Over time, they were certain that their daughter's soul was in fact trapped in the doll, with town shamans actually confirming their theories to be true. In 1938, the family relocated to a different district. They had gotten used to their daughter's spirit and saw it as a blessing rather than a curse. But they feared that taking the doll with them would cause the spirit to leave the doll due to the proximity of the daughter's grave. So a family approached the local temple and asked them to look after Okiku the doll. The temple by now had heard many stories about the doll, and the priests gleefully accepted in looking after Okiku. The doll still remains to this day at the Minenji temple in Hokkaido, with confirmations that the hair does indeed grow. The story gets weirder though. The temple had actually sent off samples of the hair for scientific study. And it came back that the hair was in fact the hair of a human, more specifically, a child. The story of Okiku is still shrouded in mystery, but no one can excuse the real evidence that the doll does in fact grow hair. Do you guys know of any urban legends that I missed? What's your favorite one from this one? Comment below. I don't know. Like, share, comment, subscribe.